Hello again, everybody. This is John with BestPriceNutrition.com. Today I'm here to talk to you guys about oil pulling. And some of you guys are wondering, what the hell is oil pulling and why are you talking about it? Well, specifically what happened was I received an email from somebody asking me about oil pulling, basically. What do you think about this? Because it was on this really cool blog called the Fashion Lush blog. And if you go through and you look, this blog is really popular and there was a ton of comments on it. So we went and looked and it's like, this thing is trending everywhere. And I remembered we'd heard about it a few years back. We actually had a trainer come in here from a vitamin company and talk about it. And I remember thinking, oh, that really sounds disgusting. But at that time, I didn't bother looking into it. This time I went ahead and looked into it, so I want to share with you guys what I was able to find about it. Now, just to give you a little history on it, oil pulling, it dates back to Ayurvedic medicine. It's been done for a long time there. It's basically an alternative medicine therapy. And in the absence of mouthwash, it makes sense maybe to use something to rinse your mouth out. Specifically what it is you take a fat such as coconut oil, this is a liquid coconut oil, or sesame oil is commonly used. You swirl it in your mouth for 20 minutes on an empty stomach when you first wake up. And then afterwards you have the option of washing your mouth out with salt water. That's specifically if you go to like the oil pulling site, that's what they tell you to do. So I went and looked for actual empirical evidence to see what I could find if it does actually do all these things that it says it does. But first, I want to give you the purported benefits that you might find out there. This is the one I found on that really chic Fashion Lush blog, where she listed a bunch of benefits here. So I'll read them like her. It whitens your teeth, strengthens your teeth, gums, and jaw, prevents cavities and gingivitis, banishes bad breath, relieves headaches and hangovers, helps you sleep better, clears sinuses, and detoxifies the body, and much more. Oh my god, have you heard about this new oil pulling thing? I heard it detoxifies your bod and pulls toxins out of your mouth.
Yeah?
You want to try it?
Oh, sure.
Oh my god. Are my teeth whiter? Alright?
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Totally.
Let's actually get into the evidence. I want to give this thing a fair shake. So what I did find was I found a few randomized control trials. And all the trials had a small sample size. That's one thing I want to say. It's 20. They were limited to 20. And they were a little bit short in duration. But otherwise, they were relatively well designed. And the first trial found that they compared it to mouthwash versus oil pulling. Okay, and they had a pretty good exclusion-inclusion criteria. If you had used antibiotics within the last 3 to 4 weeks, you weren't allowed in the study. You had to have plaque-induced gingivitis, so to make sure that it actually, you had a start baseline of something that they wanted to actually remove from your mouth. And what they found was that the mouthwash group actually had a more statistically significant reduction in bacteria. The second study looked at a specific strain of bacteria, Streptococcus mutans, which is a significant contributor to tooth decay. Again, it was the basic same setup. They just looked at this specific species bacteria because it does contribute to tooth decay. That one found specifically that the mouthwash was more effective. And I'm sorry, the first study that I mentioned, they actually were found to be about the same in terms of effectiveness. And the first study, to me, may have been confounded by the fact that they were all able to brush their teeth once a day. They didn't know whether or not these people were brushing their teeth prior. They're young men, who knows whether or not they were brushing their teeth before. So that may have contributed to the fact that they both kind of came in at the same place, but we don't know for sure. And then a third study was done to look at halitosis. And some of that one was a little bit confounding because it was based on a self-assessment. One of the criteria at least. They did some other stuff too. And that one found more or less that they were equal in effectiveness. But otherwise, that's it. Are there studies that say that that they didn't check to see if it whitens teeth? There's no research of that. Strengthening teeth, gum, and jaws, that would have to be implied based upon the reduction of bacteria. So maybe, but again, the evidence is lacking. But when you make these kind of claims, the burden of proof is on you to prove them. So what the question is too, and the aim of some of these studies too, is that in poorer countries where maybe mouthwash isn't available, is this a viable alternative? Maybe. Now, in terms of the ability of it to pull toxins out of your blood, I'm going to read exactly what the researchers actually said because they sum it up best. Basically what they say is that it was claimed that the swishing activates enzymes and draws toxins out of the blood. The bottom line is that oil pulling actually cannot pull toxins out of the blood as claimed because the oral mucosa does not act as a semi-permeable membrane to allow toxins to pass through. In other words, you're not swishing oil in your mouth and pulling toxins out of your blood. That's just, it's not going to happen. So sorry, it doesn't detoxify the bod. The other thing you have to consider is the cost of doing this, not monetarily, but in terms of your time. Do you want to spend 20 minutes a morning swishing fat in your mouth? You know, I don't know. I personally don't. I'll do the 30 seconds or a minute with mouthwash, or just brush your teeth. You can do that alone. Ideally, they do recommend that you brush your teeth as well in combination with either of these. So it's not brush your teeth or oil pull. It's brush your teeth and oil pull, or brush your teeth and mouthwash is the idea. But one thing I do want to add is that it may actually be dangerous, because I was able to get my hands on a white paper that I found that came up, and it was from some physicians who had a patient who came in 4 times in 6 months with pneumonia. And what they did was they kept looking at the CT scans, and what they found was what they thought was consistent with lipoid pneumonia. And turns out that's what it was. Specifically, they had a 56-year-old female who came in, and they kept asking her, each time she would get admitted, they were able to clear it up. They would give her broad spectrum antibiotics, she would leave, she'd go home, fine, and then she'd come back a little bit later. Again, this is 4 times within 6 months. And they would ask her, and she denied ingestion of any oils or anything like that, because they were asking, is there something going on? And they didn't say oil pulling specifically. They were just trying to figure out why we keep having you come in every 4 times in 6 months. And upon the last admission, the 4th one, she admitted to oil pulling. And each time she would leave the time before, she would more rigorously oil pull, because she wanted to get the toxins out of her mouth. Well, what happened was she probably aspirated some of the oil, and it ended up getting into her lung, and the oil being filled with microbes may have very well been the cause of her pneumonia. Now, using Occam's razor, that's probably the most likely way, because since she discontinued oil pulling, when they told her not to, she hasn't been back, and at the time of publication, that was 2 years without pneumonia. So, it's worth noting. I don't want to cause fear-mongering. It's just, the reality is, yes, they tell you not to swallow the oil, but however, if you're gurgling it for 20 minutes, you may actually just, like I said, some of it may be aspirated, it may end up in your lungs. So you do not want to do that. So it's not without a little bit of risk that you do this. So based upon that, based upon the evidence, I gotta tell you that to me, it's not worth it. Can that change? Sure, of course, if there's some longer duration studies that come out that look at this a little bit more specifically. But to date, there's really not any advantages over mouthwash. At best, from the one study, you could say it's as good. Based on the other study, it's not as good. Again, these are short duration studies with small sample size. And when you're the one making these claims that it does all these things, basically some kind of oral panacea, that's just not, that again, the burden of proof is on you, so the evidence isn't there. So, for my take, I will spare myself the oil pulling. I will use coconut oil in my shake because it tastes good. I'll mix it in there. I'll throw a tablespoon in there, but I will not be swirling it in my mouth. I hope I was able to save you guys 20 minutes every morning of doing this. And of course, inevitably, there's going to be some comments in here. If I'm to glean anything from what I saw in the Fashion Lush blog comment section, but it works. Oh my God. So anyways, thanks for watching. Check us out at facebook.com/bestpricenutrition. Oh my God, Stacey, did you hear about this new oil pulling thing? Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's try it. I heard detoxifies your bod. What do you think? Is it good?
Oh, so good.
For sure.
Totally.
Cool.